Welcome to Highly Successful Couples, the podcast that helps couples grow together instead of growing apart. I'm your host, Nick Solaczek, and today I want to share a few thoughts with you on looking for the perfect relationship and share a metaphor of the canoe for our experience of being together. Many of us have a fantasy about a perfect partner or a perfect relationship. And if we're single, we might dream of the person who can meet our needs, love us just the right way, and add the benefit of companionship to our life. If we're partnered, we might dream of a person who's better than the one we're with and doesn't get on our nerves as much. We dream of the person who likes what we like, sees things the way that we see it, knows exactly what we need, maybe has the same arousal template as us, and just fits perfectly into our life with no disruptions. Some of us kind of imagine this, and I have imagined this as a product out of the box that's ready to go. And we can have this fantasy and this image in our mind, this idea of meeting someone who is like this, who's programmed the right way, knows how we want to be talked to, is engineered to our exact specifications, and knows how we want to be touched and how to relate to us exactly the way that we want. And this imagining that we do is just that. It is a figment of our imagination. I hate to break it to you, but it doesn't exist. There is no 100% perfect partner or perfect relationship. We can always find something wrong with our partner because people are not perfect. And that doesn't mean they're toxic. It just means that we all have our growth edges. We all have opportunities to be more confident, more aware, more attuned. None of us have got it all figured out. None of us know everything there is to know. And so, yes, we can find a partner who's more aligned for us. But even when we meet that right person, there are going to be things that get on our nerves or that cause us anxiety. People are imperfect and cannot read our minds, which requires us to make an effort to talk about things, to negotiate aspects of our lifestyle, and create agreements that help protect us from unwanted and hurtful behaviors. None of us are without flaws. None of us are without insecurities and fears. As a result, we are going to get anxious about certain dynamics, and we can end up pissing each other off as we argue our way through it, or quietly feel anxious about the conversations that get swept under the rug. It's important to remember that we're going to have tough moments. We're going to misunderstand each other and find ourselves in conflict or tension. And this is totally normal. It's part of being in a healthy relationship. When it comes to relational success, we need to remember that mistakes happen. This doesn't mean that we put up with ongoing bad behavior, abuse, or toxic dynamics. It means we understand that no one is perfect and make a mutual effort in making necessary changes. We need flexibility. It needs to be okay to screw up or forget while also working together as a team to reduce the frequency of these things happening. Some moments will be far from perfect, but how can we work together as a team? How can we turn towards our issues together? How can we be better partners for each other? If we hold our partner to an extreme standard, it only increases the tension, stress, and fear. Have you ever been held to an extreme standard by a partner or a parent or a boss? Is that peaceful and relaxing for you? Or does that put a lot of pressure on you and raise anxiety levels? If we're not getting our needs met and we launch into big reactivity, it starts to affect the safety in our relationship and how safe our partner feels. And as I've mentioned previously, big reactivity is not simply getting loud or explosive. It can also be getting very quiet, shutting down and withdrawing. And it's easy to blame our partner for problems and create a story that it is all their fault. We conveniently ignore the fact that relationships are a two-way street and it goes both ways. And this whole thing is a co-creation. We are both responsible. Yet we sometimes hope, wish, and imagine that our partner would be 100% perfect all of the time so that we don't have to feel any difficult feelings, so that we don't have to face our discomfort, so that we don't have to grow. and so that we don't have to take responsibility. Essentially, what this can become is, if you're not my hero, you are a zero. And when we feel that and we sense that, we've got these extreme standards, we typically descend into some kind of personal abyss in our psyche. And we might protest, lash out, try to control our partner, criticize them into being the person we want them to be, or just withdraw, to protect ourselves. The fact is that this pattern just doesn't work, and it definitely doesn't feel good. We can get so focused on our partner showing up for us in a specific way that we lose sight of all the wonderful things they offer and bring to the relationship. We get into a narrow perspective and simply are watching for this one specific thing that they do that we don't like. Then, if they don't do what we want them to do, we can launch into our own reactive strategy and try and get them to change. So the inquiry here is, instead of paddling our canoe forward as a couple, instead of rowing merrily down the stream, we sometimes want to hit each other over the head with our paddles. Why do we do that? What compels us to attack each other? Where did we learn that? When we behave that way, how does it impact us? Our relationship? How does it impact our partner? What does that create? And in a way, we really are in the metaphorical canoe. We both get in excited for a romantic paddle into the sunset together. And we start to feel a little bit cramped. We notice that our partner isn't doing much paddling, or they haven't shut up for the last 30 minutes about their challenges at work. And now we're thinking, maybe I should jump overboard and just swim to shore and find a new partner who's more enjoyable. And there probably are some boats we should jump out of. But the point I want to emphasize is that we really need a new approach and a new philosophy for our relationships. We're afraid of rocking the boat and getting each other wet. But the journey ahead in conscious relationship is full of storms, rough waters, and moments of uncertainty. That's life. There's going to be hardship. Not all the time, but some days and sometimes, or many days in a row. So we need to learn how to work together as a team, hang in there with each other, and be curious about how we can love each other better. If you're with a partner, have you ever asked them that question? Sincerely. Hey, I was listening to this podcast, I was reading this great book, and there was a question I thought, I could pose that to you. How could I love you better? And be open to what they've got to say. Be open to what sort of feedback they might share with you or requests that they might make. It's a vulnerable question to ask because anything they say you can take personally and make it mean that you're not good enough in some way. Obviously, when one partner is sharing in a really intense way that could include a lot of insults and put downs, that's really hard to hear. And I'm not encouraging that you put up with that type of sharing over time, but that you just be open to hearing your partner's perspective. And what if you both asked this question at the same time? What would happen if you were both thinking, how could I love this person better? What if you were both focused on that and practicing what you need to practice? It's going to require you to stretch. It's going to be hard sometimes. You might not be very good at the thing your partner wants the most. What's more common is that we do things in our relationship. We say, think, and act in ways that really don't serve this inquiry. And when we're in this canoe, when someone does something on one side of the boat, it affects the other person. It affects the other side of the boat. When something happens on one side of your relationship, it will have an impact in another area of the relationship. So is what you're doing, thinking, and saying on your side of the relationship going to help the connectivity of the relationship as a whole or not? And both partners can make this inquiry. Am I helping this thing along or not? And if we're struggling, if one of us has jumped out of the boat, do we want to get back in together? How can we get back in and back on course instead of treading water and kicking our legs tirelessly? How can we forgive each other every day, be more patient and more attuned? And I'm not advocating or trying to say that if you've broken up with someone, you should get back together. Some relationships are bankrupt. Some people really don't have what it takes to make it work, or they're not ready at the phase in their life, or they're struggling. They're crippled with addiction and they need help and they need to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. Couples can work through these things together. They can work through affairs. They can work through addiction, and couples do. Couples have dealt with immense loss and tragedy and been able to somehow grow and heal through that experience and not let it destroy their relationship. And I'm not shaming or putting down anyone who's made a choice to leave their relationship, because I've shared previously, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to leave. But this conversation that we're having is about the power struggle. It's about the dynamics that we face that create confusion for us, that create struggle. And too often we leave our relationships without making a deeper inquiry and without asking ourselves important and powerful questions. So how can we do this while also committing to positive behavior change and taking full responsibility for the state of our relationship? A conscious relationship requires us to remember our own strength in moments of difficulty. If you want some further points here to reflect on, here could be some useful questions. How do you want your relationship to look? How do you want to use your relationship? To serve what end? What goal? What vision? What purpose? Not use your partner, but use the vehicle of the relationship for something, for some means. How do you want to handle the situations where you get reactive? What agreements do you want to create with your partner about how you manage stress, conflict, tension? How do you guys deal with your frustrations? What are some things you'd really appreciate more of from your partner? Is there something you're longing for more of? How can you ask for that in a way that invites them in instead of pushes them away? How can you give each other more of what you want as a loving and empowered exchange? And that's where I'll leave you for today. I hope that this conversation is useful for you, and I created this show with my audience in mind, which means no ads or sponsors or wasting your time. So if you love this podcast, consider leaving a 5-star review. It really helps support the show, which will then help more people in creating relationships that they love. Thank you for tuning in, supporting my work, and spending time with me today. Looking forward to speaking with you again next week.